YouTube gave me my subs back.
Alright guys, welcome to episode 2 of the complete noob guide to Airsoft. If you haven't seen the previous episode, all of the episodes are currently available on my channel. So here we are. Today we're going to talk about my favorite part of Airsoft, which is the guns. You might be looking to buy your first gun. If that's the case, let me be clear. Do not buy a sniper rifle as your first airsoft gun. Do not buy a sniper rifle as your first airsoft gun. Do not buy a sniper rifle as your first airsoft gun. Sniper rifles have next to no fire rate because they're bolt action, and the tiny bit of range you get with a stock sniper rifle will not be able to make up for its disadvantages. Think about it. In real life, sniper rifles use large caliber bullets, but in airsoft, all the bullets are the same size. The bullet a sniper rifle shoots is the same as a pistol, so there's not a lot you can do to make up for that range difference. So, do not buy a sniper rifle as your first airsoft gun. You will miss a lot, you won't have fun. Now that's out of the way, let's get into the basics. Airsoft guns are powered by one of 4 sources. You have spring-powered weapons, battery-powered weapons, gas-operated weapons, and HPA or high-pressured air power weapons. Spring weapons work very similar to a Nerf gun. You need to cock the action every time you want to fire a shot. This way, your physical force puts energy into the spring and then you fire, and you need to do that for every shot. This is why cocking a spring weapon is actually much harder to do than cocking a real firearm, because there's all that resistance since you're putting energy into the spring. Next, spring weapons are more comparable to toys. They're cheap, they're very low powered, they have no range, and in general, they're unskirmishable. This is except for 2 exceptions. Shotguns and sniper rifles, high quality shotguns and sniper rifles. It's very easy to find sniper rifles and shotguns for 10-20 bucks at anything. For sniper rifles, any sniper rifle shooting over 400 FPS with a 0.2 gram BB is probably a good place to start. With shotguns, you can find single shot shotguns, but why would you want that? That'd be the same as using any other spring weapon. They also make spring powered tri-shot shotguns, which fire 3 BBs per trigger pull. Other than that, I would stay away from spring weapons unless you just want to do some backyard plinking. Next, we have battery-powered weapons. While there are some very cheap low-end battery-powered weapons that might take AA's or some small proprietary battery, most battery-powered weapons use either nickel metal hydride batteries or lithium polymer batteries. Battery-powered weapons can usually be defined as one of 3 types. We have AEGs, or automatic electric guns, AEPs, or automatic electric pistols, and LPEGs, or low-powered electric guns. The differences between these 3 types comes in the internals and how their gearbox functions. AEGs have full-size metal gearboxes with metal gears. Most guns that you see in matches or online that are electric-powered are AEGs. Next, you have AEPs, which have much smaller gearboxes that are also metal with metal gears. AEP gearboxes are much weaker and are unable to provide the same power as a full-size AEG, but they come with the advantage that they can split within smaller guns. So many small electric-powered weapons that are skirmishable are AEPs. Lastly, we have LPEGs, or low-powered electric guns. These will have plastic gearboxes, plastic gears, and are only slightly better than spring-powered weapons. An LPEG, in my opinion, is also a toy. That $30 AK you bought from Walmart that's battery-powered, it's a toy. So in general, I would recommend that you stay away from LPEGs. Next, we have gas-powered guns. Gas-powered guns are powered by one of 2 sources of power. Either green gas, which is a sort of propane that's mixed with silicone oil, or with these CO2 cartridges. This is a 12 gram CO2 cartridge. In general, CO2 is more powerful than green gas. So if your gun is built to run green gas, use green gas. If it's built to run CO2, use CO2. If you put CO2 in a green gas gun, either through a magazine, I don't care if it's a 1911 and the company even makes CO2 1911 magazines, if you put that CO2 magazine in your green gas 1911, it will most likely break the gun because the parts are not reinforced to handle CO2. If you use green gas in a CO2 gun by the same means, the CO2 gun probably will not cycle properly because there's not enough force behind all the reinforced parts to get a full cycle. Gas guns in general are much more expensive than AEGs, much less reliable and accurate, and also much more fragile. So why would you buy them? Well, for one, handguns. Because gas can be fit into small canisters, you can have normal or even small, compact and subcompact handguns that run off gas. Even AEPs, the 1911s and the Glocks, are larger than actual 1911s and Glocks. Second, it's the realism. Gas guns have the most realistic operation of any airsoft gun. When you run out of ammo, your slide or your dust cover will lock back, and in order to continue firing after you reload, you must chamber the first new round. Of course, there's recoil, the weapons are lighter. In general, they're just so much more fun and satisfying to play with than any other gun. Also, all grenades are powered by some sort of gas or CO2. Lastly, we have HPA. HPA weapons are powered by a high-pressure air container that's either carried on the back and connected via a line to the gun, or in some rare cases is kept in the stock of the gun. Many HPA systems also come with an onboard CPU that's powered by a small battery. These CPUs add more programmability into the gun, so you can control things like fire rate and burst functions. With HPA systems, you can also easily control FPS or feet per second of your gun. That means if you're about to play indoors, you can turn it down so it's CQB legal, or if you're going outdoors, you can turn it up to give yourself a little extra range. Because of the programmability of HPA systems, I feel fairly confident in saying that HPA systems are the best running airsoft guns on the market. They're the most reliable and the most consistent, simply based on the fact that you can program what they do, and they have most consistent shots based on the high pressure air system. They also use AEG magazines and are compatible with some AEG parts. Of course, they're some of the most expensive guns on the market. A cheap APA rifle will cost you about $400 if you can find one for that much. So next, let's have a little crash course on the parts of a gun. We're going to start with a pistol. I don't have the magazine in, but the magazine is the part of the gun on most guns that holds the ammunition, or the BBs. In gas-powered and CO2-powered weapons, a lot of the magazines actually hold the gas and the CO2. The top part of the gun, here, that moves, that's called the slide. Here in the slide, or embedded in the slide, is the dust cover. When the slide moves back, the dust cover is covered up, and you can see into what is known as the chamber. In a real weapon, this is where you'd be able to see the bullets being loaded into the barrel. The part that the bullets come out of is a barrel. In Airsoft, there's actually two barrels on the guns. There's the outer barrel, that's there for aesthetic, and there's the inner barrel, which is much smaller, that actually holds the BBs. Where the magazine goes is known as a magwell. On the sides of your weapons, or sometimes on both sides if they're ambidextrous, there's a little button. When you click that button, the mag falls out. For this reason, it's called a magazine release. Again, on handguns, which have a slide, there is a slide catch. And if you press down on the slide catch, it's the slide release. We have sights, which are what you use to aim in general. Guns also have pieces that allow you to take them down, or field strip, if you will. Here, the takedown levers are found on either side, right here. And if I pull down on those, the gun comes apart. Here, we have a rifle. This is an M4 style rifle. I'm using this rifle because it's the most popular system in the United States, and I think in Airsoft in general. So there's a very high chance that your first AEG will be an M4. First, again, we have the magazine. In M4s, the magazine goes in straight. But in some weapons, like AKs and G36s, I think MP5s too, magazines actually must be rocked in, where they come in like this and then they click up. Just like on a pistol, the part where the magazine goes inside is known as the magwell. Here, this big button here, that's the magazine release. This rifle is built to be ambidextrous, so we have magazine releases actually on both sides. Right here. If I press in that magazine release, it unlocks the magazine and I can remove it from the magwell. Here is a fake bolt. This model actually does not have a dust cover, but on M4 type rifles, there's a dust cover here that folds up and down. This handle is the charging handle. On a real weapon, it would work like the slide does on a pistol. When I pull back on the charging handle, it would chamber the next round. Here you can see the fake bolt moving back. Weapons usually have three functions. They have safety, which means you cannot fire the weapon. They have semi-automatic, which means every time you pull the trigger, only one bullet comes out. Then you have full automatic, which means if you pull and hold the trigger, bullets will keep coming out until you let go of the trigger or you run out of ammunition. To select between these firing types, you have the selector switch right here. Right here, the weapon is on safe. Now it is on semi. Now it's on full automatic. Selector switches on different rifles have lots of different designs. At the end, we have the stock. The stock is what you put up against your shoulder when aiming. At the end of the stock is usually some sort of butt plate or butt pad. On weapons that have retractable stocks, the metal tube that the stock moves over is known as the buffer tube. Here we have an example of iron sights. Iron sights are non-magnified optics that come standard on lots of weapons. They're essentially just metal rings so that you can aim. Here I've attached my own optic, which is a red dot. This is a rail. It's a Picatinny rail. This is the standard mounting system to mount optics and attachments to your guns. Here we can see the outer barrel. The inner barrel is obviously inside of it. At the end, we have a flash hider. In real life, you have flash hiders, muzzle brakes, and suppressors, each which do different things and can affect accuracy. In Airsoft, they're mostly for aesthetic reasons. After some work, a lot of flash hiders become removable, and underneath they have 14mm counterclockwise threads, and in some cases 14mm clockwise threads. You can buy other flash hiders or suppressors or other attachments. Oh look, you can also see the inner barrel there. That go over these threads to upgrade or to customize your gun later on. The only thing that's left is basic body parts of the gun. This lower half, in this gun it's black, that is known as the lower receiver. And the grip, or the pistol grip, or in Airsoft the motor grip, because the motor is kept in here, is attached to the bottom of the lower receiver. This part right here in red, that's known as the upper receiver. When you take apart your gun, the lower receiver and the upper receiver separate from each other. This long part that's protecting your hand from the barrel is known as the hand guard. So now you're looking to buy your first AEG. When it comes to buying anything in Airsoft and possibly in life, you should keep 3 things in mind: utility, style, and price. You need to decide how important each of these aspects is to you when you're searching for what you want to buy. First, you should be buying an AEG for all the reasons I just described earlier. Spraying weapons, pretty useless. Don't buy a sniper rifle as your first Airsoft gun. You'll have a lot more fun if you have an assault rifle, so also I wouldn't recommend a shotgun. Gas guns and HPA weapons are much too expensive, or at least I do not recommend buying them as your first Airsoft guns. If you have the money for an HPA weapon and you know that you're going to be using it, I guess go crazy, but I would definitely recommend buying an AEG as your first weapon. Second, you're going to want a gun that's not so short that you can only use it in CQB, but not so long you can only use it in outdoors. You're going to want to find something that's in between. I would recommend finding something with an inner barrel length of 300 to 400 millimeters, and obviously an outer barrel length that's near the same thing. Like if you have a 300mm inner barrel but a sniper length outer barrel, that's kind of useless. Of course, you might already know what environments you're going to be playing in. For example, if all the fields near you are only outdoors and they have higher FPS limits, you might want to go with a 400 FPS longer barrel. If you know that you're only playing in CQB, you might want to go with a small, short submachine gun type weapon. You always need to decide what is best for you. These are just my recommendations. As for FPS, or the power of the weapon, I would suggest buying something within 300 and 350 FPS, because many CQB arenas have 350 FPS as the cap. By the way, this is with the 0.2 gram BB, forgot to mention. As 350 FPS measured with the 0.2 gram BB as the cap, and they will not let you use anything stronger. So if you get something at the higher end of that, 330, 340, 350, something along those lines, you have a weapon that's powerful in CQB, but also has enough power to keep up with longer range engagements. Next thing to consider is weapon type. I'm sure a lot of you already have ideas of what kind of weapon that you want to buy as your first, either from video games, movies, whatever. But something to keep in mind is that you want a weapon that has lots of available parts and lots of available upgrades. That way, if anything breaks because you bought a real cheap weapon or because it was mishandled or just because it broke, you have lots of parts that are cheap that you can easily fix it, or you can take it to somebody else to fix it. If you buy something that's too proprietary, like if you buy a P90 or something, if that breaks, it's going to be a lot harder to find parts and to find upgrades for. So, the most popular weapon, like I already mentioned, is the M4 platform, or the AR platform. M4s that take normal M4 magazines are definitely the most popular airsoft rifle out there. If you buy one of those, you'll easily be able to find customization pieces, parts, upgrades, whatever. But the problem is, everyone has one. And if you're like me, that means you're going to want something else. Other weapons to consider are AKs, MP5s, G36s, SCARs, ACRs, maybe even G3s. All of these weapons have similar internal parts to M4s and have plenty of parts that are out there that you can that you can find and upgrade, at least internally. And then you also have different style options with readily available magazines. Types of weapons that you want to stay away from is anything that's usually chambered in a large caliber. That's like SR25s, SVDs, possibly even M14s. M14s actually, I think they might have some pretty good support, but as a first weapon, maybe just stay away from the M14. Weapons like these usually have interesting internal parts. Other things to stay away from are LMGs, because a lot of them also have proprietary internal parts that'll be really hard to repair and fix in the future. Also, stay away from bullpup designs. Even if they use a version 2 or version 3 gearbox, the system is just a little bit different and it's a pain to work on, so I would also stay away from bullpups. Of course, all of this is keeping in mind utility. The second thing is style. So if you really have to have that FAMAS or really have to have that P90 or that SCAR H or whatever, go get it. It's your choice, it's your weapon. Just know before you buy it, it will be harder to find parts in the future. But do your research, buy the gun that makes you happy versus the gun that some guy on the internet is telling you to buy. Of course, the last thing to consider is price. This is the price I'm giving you to save up if you want your first airsoft gun. Your first feelable, good airsoft gun, $150. Now, you can buy lots of airsoft guns for cheaper than this, but $150 is what I find is a good level for intro and intermediate level airsoft guns. And I'm actually going to recommend lots of guns to you guys that are cheaper than this, but $150 is your target. That way you don't need to wait on a sale, that way you don't need to wait on anything. That way you always have the money to buy a good intro airsoft gun. Some things to consider is the brand. There are lots of really good intermediate brands out there, but there's also a lot of crap. The brands I recommend are G&G, SEMA, JG or Golden Eagle, D-Boys, and Classic Army. Those are 5 good brands that if you find a weapon for $150 or less, you probably can buy it and it'll be just fine. Some things to keep in mind, this doesn't mean that other brands are not good. Obviously you got like Crytax and stuff like that, but it just means that for $150, these are the kind of guns that you want to be looking for. There's also a lot of brands that you don't want to be looking at, like Crossman, Well, Lancer Tactical, Valken, and Double Eagle. Also, stay away from anything that you might find in a Walmart. The brands I mentioned in Walmart guns are low quality and you should just avoid them in general. For weapons, they make other products that work just fine. Right now, you can go on eBay and you can find a JG Combat Machine, which is an M4 style platform, for $135 or less. You can also find SEMA AKs. Don't go for the sport line, go for their normal metal SEMA AKs for $100 or less. And that's really good. You can find, if it's on sale for Christmas, you can find a $85 full metal AEG that'll work just fine. So there it is, pretty much everything I know about airsoft guns. Next, we'll be talking about the basics, batteries, BBs, and gas, so you guys can buy exactly what you need to get started in the future. See you then.